people don't fundamentally believe that America is a force for good in the world. We talk about Iran having nukes. The general response you'll get is, well, America has nukes. Why shouldn't Iran have nukes too? They're being force fed thousands of pieces of content every single day, and they're being told that if they don't have the right opinion on that, they are a bad person.
This episode is for parents. We send our kids to universities hoping they get an education grounded in actual history and critical thinking. Many of us are discovering is that something is going on college campuses in America in particular. Facts are being changed, historical context is being stripped away, and social media is the jet fuel, resulting in a generation forming its understanding of history on, let's just say, perhaps not facts. This is where my guest comes in. Welcome to the Israeli Trailblazers Show. I am your host, Jennifer Weissman. We are speaking with Bucky Appistorff, the CEO of an organization called Let's Do Something. This kind of reminds me of what Charlie Kirk was doing on college campuses. Welcome, Bucky.
Thank you, Jennifer.
What does Let's Do Something actually do on a college campus?
What we've noticed is the polarization that's going on in America right now has really gotten to a boiling point, and these people are all essentially talking to themselves. What we've seen in the time we've spent on campuses, which I think is essentially more than most people in the world have over the past 2 years, we're talking 30, 40 campuses, months and months on end. And this is really everything in America, is it's become camps. You mentioned Charlie Kirk, right? Charlie Kirk did amazing work for the conservative movement, an incredible proponent for free speech. And you have people within Turning Point chapters and, Young Americans for Freedom and other groups on the conservative side. And then you have the same exact thing going on the liberal side, whether it's Democratic Socialists of America or other groups. So what we're creating as a space on campus is we essentially bring these groups together and we try to make sure that they can have conversations and they can hash things out. In the world on social media, even though we walk down the same streets, we may be living on different planets, and we try to make sure that those things come together a little bit.
Walk me through what happens when you get onto a college campus.
We'll run a couple different formats. One is called Answer 3 Questions, Win $100, where we'll have questions across the history of America or the history of the world. And we answer these questions with students. If they win, they get $100. And then this opens up into a political conversation. Another thing we do is called Finding Common Ground, where we have 2 beanbags, we set up a production on campus, and we have students from the right and the left sit, and they talk about things from gun control to freedom of speech to political violence to Israel-Palestine. The idea behind all these concepts is creating a space where they're both comfortable to actually be talking, and they're working towards a goal. We don't just want people talking at each other, we want people talking to each other. So in this Finding Common Ground series, if at the end of a topic, let's say that's really, really intense, like gun control, if they could find a shared value and a shared action item for the future, we'll reward them with $20, $30, something like that. And that is teaching them to work together, because that's what America is about. You don't have to agree on everything, but when you disagree, you still need to work together. As you can imagine, sometimes they do get heated. We tried to bring in a fact check and remind these people that we are on the same team here. They forget so much are Americans before they are liberals or before they are conservatives.
What's the outcome? What do you see when you've got different groups sitting around a table?
We used to have a shared fact set, right? And then we could disagree within that range. During World War II, FDR would get on the radio every night and give an update, or people would go see the reels at the movie theater. Now, the world we are living in is really your own algorithm. So what's so tough sometimes is people are coming from these completely different worlds. So that's why I think actually meeting and talking these things about them in person, and not just this person is the enemy, but hey, my reality is meeting your reality. It's not always clean. It's sometimes messy, but it's also so important, because in the end of the day, when it's a human being in front of you, when you're sitting down and there's a cup of coffee and you're going to hug it out afterwards, you notice that no matter how much they try to demonize the other side, it's just another human being just like you.
Give me an example of what you did at University of Michigan and what the outcome was.
We had a kid from the Turning Point USA chapter, and he had a friend who was second generation immigrant from Syria who sat more on the left. And I kind of sat there in the middle. We had the three of us, and then we had a concept up that was pitch your solution, essentially. So we had literally at this table a Christian, a Muslim, and a Jew. And it's just say, hey, bring it forward. And then what happened was it opened up these four-way conversations, which were really cool. And we are used to a world where people can no longer sit at a table and talk. And when that happens, things go wrong. So I think modeling these things for the students that this could happen, but also make it interesting and fun for them is so important.
So Christian, Muslim, Jew, University of Michigan, what was the outcome?
I learned a lot. This kid's father, who moved from Syria in the 1950s, was telling me about the history, where that country came from. And it opened up my perspective. And I think I was telling him a lot more about where Israel came from. And he learned a lot more. And even more than that, I think the most was just the students who participated modeled the conversation where the three of us were able to have these conversations and sit together and talk about Israel-Palestine. And we disagreed on a lot of these things, but we're still able to sit at a table and respect each other. And I think serving that lesson is so important.
So you're not out to change minds.
Yeah. Someone says, why are you committing a genocide? And then someone else says, it's not a genocide because of this. And then they say, well, I saw that. I think what it's about is opening people's eyes and make them think. The majority of Americans are being pitted against each other in a sense. Russia, China, and Iran, they have huge incentive. They cannot beat America kinetically, but they can divide us. And when they divide us, we're weak. And I just want to open up students to that understanding, because Russia will fund the KKK just as quickly as they'll fund the Black Panthers. It does not matter to them. They want to sow chaos. And when there is chaos being sowed, America loses and other people wins. And essentially for them, it's just, hey, reminder what side you're on and what we're working on.
You're talking now about a much bigger agenda with, you didn't mention Qatar, but we could throw Qatar in there too, especially when we're talking about funding universities. In all of the universities that you've been to and seeing these different programs, student to student, are you seeing a change, a softening about America's role in the world and even Israel's role in the world?
There's been a complete change. People don't fundamentally believe that America is a force for good in the world. We talk about Iran and Iran having nukes. The general response you'll get is, well, America has nukes. Why shouldn't Iran have nukes too? I forget the name of the person, but he talked about suicidal empathy.
God Saad, yeah, he says suicidal empathy.
I believe strongly to the core, it is immoral if you do not care more about your family than you care about me as a stranger. And you need to have those levels of importance, and you should care about your own. That is not a bad thing. That is a good thing. That doesn't mean you don't care about others, but there is an order of operations. People are missing a basic moral knowledge and understanding, and that makes their viewpoint on the world very, very confused.
And why do you think that is?
In a world that has become infinitely more complex, the simplest thing to do is just choose a team. So I think as an overreaction, people go for the simplest narratives possible. I'm white and that person's dark. So this is bad and that's good. All of these type of things is essentially a way of dealing with the complexity in the world, because frankly, it's not fair to an 18 or a 19-year-old to be able to understand that much. These are complex topics. I barely know what's going on. You barely know what's going on. They barely have a developed brain. They're being force-fed thousands of pieces of content every single day, and they're being told that if they don't have the right opinion on that, they are a bad person.
Let's talk about social media, because that is the jet fuel, right? What can we do to stop or even slow the spread of misinformation, primarily about Western values?
Yeah.
And I'm going to throw Israel into the mix here.
You cannot slow down an arms race because you're in a race. The only thing you could do is participate and win at that race. And that is what America needs to do, which means we need to invest. We need to get better at creating this content. Qatar, sure, and a lot of these other players have been working on this as a strategy for a long time. We are waking up now, and America has always woken up slowly. If you look at their industrial base during World War II, it only woke up after Pearl Harbor attack. In a way, I think we're seeing a kind of social media version of that. And yes, we wake up slowly, but once we wake up, I think we can do something. The pendulum swings, and I will say this from talking about experience on campuses, I have a lot of hope because reality is where ideology goes to die. And these kids are essentially becoming a product of an ideology, and they're getting sick of it over time. And I think they're starting to see that. And then when they're sick of it, they will start doing something about it.
Enjoying the show? Please take 5 seconds and tap a 5-star review wherever you're listening to this show. It helps more people find this podcast and grow the Israeli Trailblazers community. I get concerned about the grievance party, these young kids who justify assassinating a CEO of a healthcare company because they don't like their premiums or whatever. And I'm wondering if you see that changing on college campuses.
There's almost this nihilistic, self-hating aspect of the psyche these days, which is really, really dangerous. These shifts are young versus old. And I think in the end of the day, to get past that over time, there are a lot of things going on in the world that really scare these kids. They cannot afford a home anymore. That is a legitimate thing. AI is changing the world faster than ever. They're having a very hard time finding their place in the world. So when you have angry, upset people who cannot find their place in the world, that is a dangerous situation. It's best not to look at these people as the enemy, but as victims that need help, because that's really what they are. So we need to help these people in that sense.
I love that. I absolutely love that. My last question to you, what is Let's Do Something, and what is the origin of that?
Founded by myself and a couple of friends on October 8th. I lost my very close friend, David Newman, at the Nova Music Festival. He was there partying with his girlfriend, having fun, because that's what David loved to do. And he was killed because of hate. That was the only reason he was killed. And there are a lot of ways I could have reacted to that. And initially it started with what's going on with anti-Semitism in the world. But what I saw underneath that was this bigger problem in the world. And we need to solve that problem. And that problem is happening with the youth. The way to reach the youth is on social media. It's on campus, and they engage in this stuff in a completely different way. So we need to meet them where we are. And that's what we're doing. We have hundreds of students across hundreds of campuses. We built it up to hundreds of thousands of followers, and we need to just keep growing that to reach these people and have conversations with these people.
I think it's absolutely amazing what you're doing. And I love that you're going after this younger generation, because these are the future leaders. This is it.
Yes.
So A, they've got to be motivated, and B, they've got to be educated about the right priorities in life. By the way, I'm sorry about your friend, David. I think the fact that you turned this into something so powerful is incredible. Charlie Kirk was a hero of mine, and I'm happy to see someone trying to step into the next role on campus. We need it. Parents need to know this. We need to stop the polarization. We have to get past legitimate issues that Gen Zs feel, and we have to meet these kids where they are. Doing all of this is what Bucky is all about. And Let's Do Something is an incredible organization making changes on college campuses. This is the Israeli Trailblazers Show. I'm your host, Jennifer Weissman. Until next time.
Thank you, Jennifer.